Amber's hand froze in midair as the slap came. The sound echoed through the country club ballroom like a gunshot, instantly silencing the conversations around her. Her cheek burned, but it wasn't the physical pain that paralyzed her. It was the humiliation. 50 guests from Manhattan's most exclusive wedding rehearsal stared at her, some with shock, others with barely disguised contempt. "How dare you spill champagne on my sister?" Olivia Taylor screamed, her $15,000 wedding dress immaculate, as she pointed at Sarah, whose dress had a small stain on the side. "You're incompetent. People like you shouldn't work in places like this." Amber swallowed hard, feeling tears burn her eyes. It hadn't been her fault. A drunk guest had bumped into her, but no one cared about her version. She was just the 26-year-old black waitress working 3 jobs to support her sick grandmother. Invisible, disposable. Then the voice came. Deep, dangerous, loaded with an authority that made the air in the room grow heavier. "Take your hands off her." Amber turned her head slowly. A man was crossing the ballroom with measured steps, and every person in the room seemed to involuntarily lean back. He was tall, impeccably dressed, a black Italian suit that probably cost more than she made in a year. Dark hair, perfectly styled, strong jaw with a well-groomed beard, dark eyes that burned with controlled fury. But it was the tattoo on his neck, only partially visible above his white shirt collar, that made her heart race. Christian Moretti. Everyone in New York knew that name, even if they never said it out loud. "Christian, darling, this waitress," Olivia began, her voice suddenly nervous. "This woman," he interrupted, his eyes never leaving Amber, "saved my life once." The silence that followed was absolute. Amber felt the world spin. He remembered. If you want to discover how Amber saved the life of New York's most dangerous man and what happens after this unforgettable moment, subscribe to the channel and leave in the comments where you're watching from. Every view brings more thrilling stories like this one. Let's start from the beginning. Amber never imagined that working the late-night shift at a Bronx diner would change her life forever. It was 2:15 in the morning when the door burst open violently, the bell jingling frantically. She was cleaning the counter, exhausted after 8 hours on her feet when she looked up. A man stumbled inside, his white shirt soaked with blood. He wasn't from the neighborhood. That was obvious from the cut of his Italian suit, even though it was ruined from the watch gleaming on his wrist. He was at most 28 years old, handsome in a way that was frightening with eyes that had seen too much. "Please," he gasped, leaning against the counter. His accent revealed expensive education. "Do you have a phone?" "I need," he collapsed. Amber should have called the police. Any sensible person would have done that, but something in the way he tried to be polite even while bleeding. Something in the desperation of those dark eyes made her act differently. "Mr. Coleman," she shouted to the cook, "lock the front door now." If you're enjoying this story and want to see what happens next, please subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support means everything to us as we continue bringing these stories to life. For the next 2 hours, Amber used every bit of first aid she'd learned as a volunteer at church. The bullet wound in his shoulder was serious, but not fatal. She cleaned, disinfected, bandaged with trembling hands. He drifted in and out of consciousness, murmuring words in Italian that she didn't understand. "You're going to survive," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "Please survive." When he finally opened his eyes completely, it was past 5 o'clock in the morning. Pale dawn light filtered through the diner's dusty windows. "You," his voice was hoarse. "Why did you help me?" Amber met those dark eyes, so beautiful and so frightening at the same time, because everyone deserves a chance to live, even when maybe they shouldn't. She saw something shift in that gaze, surprise, recognition, something deeper she couldn't name. "What's your name?" "Amber. Amber Dawson." "Amber." He repeated her name as if memorizing something sacred. Don't tell me," she interrupted quickly, stepping back. "I don't want to know. You need to leave before someone notices. And I need to forget this happened." He stood up with difficulty, and even injured, he had a presence that dominated the small space. He removed the watch from his wrist. She saw the letters PP engraved. Patek Philippe. Probably worth a fortune.
No,
Amber backed away.
I don't want anything.
It's not payment, he said quietly, placing the watch on the counter between them. It's a promise. If you ever need me, find a way to return this to me. I'll come. Before she could protest, he was already at the door. He turned one last time. Amber Dawson. I will never forget your name. And then he disappeared into New York's gray morning. Amber kept the watch in a shoebox in her closet. Over the next 5 years, she thought about that mysterious man only in quiet moments and tried to convince herself she'd made the right choice by not accepting his help. She didn't need favors. She would survive on her own, as she always had. Now, 5 years later, Amber was at the Riverside Country Club, one of Manhattan's most exclusive venues. Working there paid 3 times more than the Bronx Diner, and she desperately needed that money. Her grandmother's chemotherapy was draining all her savings. The Taylor wedding rehearsal was the type of event she normally only saw in magazines. Flowers that cost more than her rent, imported champagne, guests with jewelry that sparkled under crystal chandeliers. Amber moved among them like a ghost, refilling glasses, collecting plates, invisible until she wasn't anymore. More champagne, a demanding voice ordered. Amber turned to find Sarah Taylor, the bride, extending her empty glass without even looking at her. Next to her stood her older sister, Olivia, whose disdainful look made it clear what she thought about Amber being there. Yes, ma'am, Amber murmured, grabbing the chilled champagne bottle. That's when it happened. A drunk guest, laughing too loudly, bumped into Amber at the exact moment she was tilting the bottle. The golden liquid spilled, a few drops hitting the side of Sarah's dress. Oh my God, Sarah screamed, looking at the small stain as if it were blood. My dress. I'm so sorry. Amber began, her heart sinking. The slap came before she could finish the sentence. Olivia had moved so fast that Amber hadn't even seen her raise her hand. Pain exploded in her cheek, sharp and humiliating. Tears burned her eyes, but she forced them back. Not here. Not in front of these people. How dare you? Olivia hissed, her face twisted with fury. You ruined my sister's dress. People like you have no care, no class. You shouldn't be here. Amber felt every pair of eyes in the ballroom on her, judging, condemning. Some women whispered behind their bejeweled hands. Men in expensive suits looked away, uncomfortable, but unwilling to intervene. She was alone as always. Then came that voice, the voice she hadn't heard in 5 years, but would recognize anywhere. Take your hands off her. And when Amber turned her head and saw Christian Moretti crossing the ballroom toward her, his dark eyes burning with protective fury that made even Olivia step back, she knew her life was about to change again. He stopped just a meter from her, so close she could see the tattoo on his neck, an intricate design that disappeared under the collar of his impeccable white shirt. He was even more handsome than she remembered, but also more dangerous. The 5 years had transformed the wounded man she'd helped into something far more frightening. Christian. Olivia tried again, her voice now pleading. This waitress spilled champagne on Sarah. This woman. Christian interrupted her, and there was ice in his voice. Saved my life once, and if you touch her again, you'll discover exactly what it means to have my attention, and I can guarantee, Olivia, you won't like it. The nickname was said with such contempt that Olivia visibly paled. Amber saw understanding cross the woman's face. She had just attacked someone under Christian Moretti's protection. Christian finally looked at Amber, and when their eyes met, she saw recognition, surprise, and something deeper, something that made her heart skip a beat. Amber Dawson, he said quietly, and her name on his lips sounded like both a promise and a sentence. I thought I'd never see you again. Amber had no choice. After Christian Moretti publicly declared she was under his protection, the country club manager didn't just apologize profusely. He begged her not to sue the establishment. Olivia and Sarah vanished from the ballroom like smoke, and the other guests suddenly found urgent reasons to be anywhere but near her. But Christian remained. Are you all right? He asked when they were finally alone in a more secluded corner of the ballroom. His hand moved as if to touch her face where Olivia had hit her, but stopped inches away, respecting her space. I am, Amber lied, her voice barely a whisper. Her face still burned, but not as much as the humiliation that scorched her chest. No, you're not. It wasn't a question. Christian gestured to one of his men. Amber hadn't even noticed the two suited guards who had materialized in the shadows. Marcus, Spring Ice, and informed the manager that Amber Dawson no longer works here. She's being transferred.
What?
Amber finally found her voice. No, you can't.
I can.
Christian cut her off, not with anger, but with the quiet certainty of someone accustomed to having his orders obeyed. You need a job. I need someone I can trust. It's a simple solution. I don't need your charity, she replied, feeling old stubbornness resurface. 5 years ago, she'd refused his watch. She didn't need him now either. Something like respect passed through his dark eyes. That's not charity, Amber. It's a debt. You saved my life. Let me at least ensure yours isn't ruined by people like Olivia Taylor. Marcus returned with an ice pack wrapped in fine linen. Amber accepted it, pressing it against her face. The cold brought immediate relief, but didn't erase the feeling that her life was spiraling completely out of control. I still have it, she said, suddenly remembering. Your watch. I kept it all these years. Christian paused. You kept it. You said it was a promise that if I needed you, I could use it to find you. Amber looked at him directly, but I never needed to. I managed on my own. I know you did. There was something like admiration in his voice. I had you tracked over the years, not to interfere, he added quickly when he saw her expression. To make sure you were safe. 3 jobs, taking care of your grandmother, never accepting help from anyone. You're stubborn, Amber Dawson. You tracked me. Indignation heated her face more than the slap had. I had to know you were all right. Christian took a step closer, and Amber realized how tall he was. At least 6 feet 3 inches, all solid muscle under that expensive suit. You saved me when you should have let me die. That creates a responsibility. I'm not your responsibility. No, he agreed. But Olivia Taylor hit you in front of 50 witnesses. And now everyone in this city knows you're under my protection, which means you can't just go back to your old life. It's too dangerous. The reality of those words hit her like a train. He was right. By publicly declaring her under his protection, Christian Moretti had painted her with the same target he carried. Rivals, enemies, anyone who wanted to hurt him would now see Amber as a vulnerability. You put me in danger, she whispered, anger and fear mixing in her voice.
No.
His eyes were steady without remorse. Olivia put you in danger the moment she raised her hand to you. I just made sure no one else makes that mistake. Now you work for me. Live on my property. Stay safe. This isn't an offer, Amber realized. It's an order. It's protection, Christian corrected. And you're going to accept it for yourself and for your grandmother. The mention of her grandmother made Amber freeze. What do you know about pancreatic cancer? Stage 3. Medical bills are draining your savings. You work 16 hours a day, and it's still not enough. There was no judgment in his voice, only facts. Let me help. Tears burned Amber's eyes again. But this time it wasn't from humiliation. It was from pure exhaustion. 5 years fighting alone. 5 years carrying everything on her shoulders. And here was this man, this dangerous man she'd saved once, offering her a way out. But at what cost? What exactly do you want from me? She asked cautiously. Manage my household, oversee the staff, ensure everything runs smoothly. Christian paused. And occasionally, very occasionally, accompany me to events where I need someone respectable by my side, someone genuine, not the women who usually frequent my circle. You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend? Amber couldn't hide the shock.
No.
His answer was quick. I would never ask that. But business events, occasional dinners where a female presence is expected, yes, but always with respect. Always with your permission. Amber studied the man before her. 5 years ago, she'd seen vulnerability in those dark eyes. Now she saw power, danger, and something else. A deep loneliness he hid under layers of authority. And my grandmother? She asked, her voice breaking slightly. The medical bills paid, and she'll have the best doctors in New York. This isn't negotiable. Amber, you saved me. Let me save who you love. It was the sincerity in his voice that broke her. Not the arrogance or the power, but the fact that Christian Moretti genuinely wanted to repay what she'd done for him. All right, she finally whispered, but with conditions. One of his eyebrows arched, almost amused. Conditions. I work for you, but I don't belong to you. You don't make decisions about my life without consulting me first. And if at any point I want to leave, you let me go. No threats, no manipulation. Christian was silent for a long moment, his dark eyes studying every detail of her face. Then slowly and deliberately, he extended his hand. Deal, Amber Dawson. But I should warn you, once you enter my world, you'll discover it's not so easy to want to leave. Amber shook his hand, and the warmth of his palm against hers sent an electric current up her arm. It was a warning, but also a promise. And when Marcus returned to inform them the car was ready to take her to the Moretti mansion, Amber realized she'd just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. On the way to the mansion, sitting in the back seat of a black Mercedes-Benz that probably cost more than she'd earned in 10 years, Amber looked out the window as they left Manhattan and headed toward Long Island. Christian sat beside her, a respectful space between them, but she was hyper-conscious of his every movement. He was typing something on an expensive phone, his jaw tense with concentration. Olivia Taylor, he said suddenly without taking his eyes from the phone. She and her family won't bother you again. I guaranteed that personally.
How?
Amber asked, though part of her wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. Her father's businesses depend on certain agreements that require my approval. Christian finally looked at her. He understood quickly the value of ensuring his daughters learn proper manners. Amber should have been shocked, should have been frightened by the casual power this man wielded over other people's lives. But all she could feel was shameful relief that Olivia could never touch her again. You don't need to be afraid of me, Amber, Christian said quietly, as if he could read her thoughts. I'm not a good man. I do things that would keep you awake at night if you knew. But I would never hurt you. That I promise.
Why?
The question came out before she could stop it. Why am I so important? I just bandaged your wound. Anyone would have done the same. No, he replied, turning completely to face her. Anyone would have called the police or let me bleed out. You risked everything to save a stranger. And when I offered to reward you, you refused. You didn't want anything from me. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Amber didn't know what to say. She saw the truth in those dark eyes, but Christian Moretti, her kindness that night had been something so uncommon that he'd carried it for 5 years. We've arrived, sir, Marcus announced from the front. Amber looked out the window, and her heart stopped. Mansion didn't adequately describe what she was seeing. Iron gates with armed security, a property that seemed to stretch for miles, and in the center, a 3-story white mansion that looked like something from an architecture magazine. Perfectly manicured gardens, a fountain in the center of the circular driveway, lights that made everything glow like a fairy tale. Welcome to your new home, Christian said, and for the first time since she'd reunited with him, he smiled. It was a small smile, almost imperceptible, but it completely transformed his face. For a moment, Amber saw the man he could have been in another life without the weight of power and danger, just Christian. And that thought scared her more than anything else so far, because Amber realized with terrible clarity that Christian Moretti wasn't just dangerous to his enemies, he was dangerous to her heart. The mansion inside was even more impressive. Italian marble, crystal chandeliers that probably cost more than Amber would earn in a lifetime, artwork she'd only seen in museums. But it wasn't cold or impersonal. There were personal touches everywhere. Black and white photographs of Italian landscapes, a bookshelf filled with books that looked actually read, a grand piano near the French windows. Your quarters, Christian said, opening a door on the second floor. Amber entered and had to hold back a gasp. The suite was larger than her entire Bronx apartment. A king-size bed with sheets that looked like clouds. A walk-in closet she'd probably never be able to fill. a marble bathroom with a separate tub and shower. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the illuminated gardens below. "It's too much," she whispered. "It's yours," Christian replied simply. "The household staff will come in the morning to introduce you to the routine. Iris, the head cook, has been with me for 15 years. She'll teach you everything. But for today, rest. I know it was a difficult night." He was about to leave when Amber called him.
Christian.
He paused, turning. The light from the hallway cast shadows on his face, making the tattoo on his neck look even more pronounced. "Why were you at that wedding rehearsal?" she asked. "Do you know the Taylors?" Something dark passed over his face. "The groom, Michael Whitmore, is the son of one of my business partners." It was a mandatory appearance, but he paused, his eyes meeting hers. "I'm glad I was there. If I hadn't been present when Olivia touched you," his jaw tightened. "Well, it's better that I was." Amber understood the unspoken threat in those words, and part of her, the part that still felt the burn of the slap, was grateful. "Good night, Amber," Christian said softly. "If you need anything, anything at all, my quarters are at the end of the hall. Don't hesitate." And then he was gone, leaving Amber alone in a room that cost more than she'd ever own, working for a man who frightened and intrigued her in equal measure. The first 2 weeks were a whirlwind of learning. Iris, a 60-year-old Italian woman with kind eyes and firm hands, taught Amber everything about managing the enormous property. There was a staff of 15 gardeners, security, and assistant cook maids. They all treated her with cautious respect, clearly aware that she had Christian's special attention. But it was Christian himself who left Amber constantly off balance. He was different from what she expected. Yes, he was a mafia boss. She saw the suited men coming and going from his office, heard tense conversations in Italian, noticed the weight of authority he carried, but with her he was careful, respectful, almost gentle. Every morning he had coffee with her on the back terrace before his day began. He asked about her grandmother, whose treatment he'd actually taken over now under the care of New York's best oncologist. He asked if she was adjusting, if she needed anything. He never crossed boundaries. Until the night of the dinner. "I need you to accompany me to an event tomorrow," Christian said during dinner in her 3rd week at the mansion. They ate together a few nights a week, an arrangement that had started casual, but that Amber realized was becoming expected. She was starting to look forward to these shared meals. "What kind of event?" Amber asked, taking a sip of wine. She was still getting used to food like this, prepared by a professional chef served on fine china, a charity gala. The same faces as always, donating money to feel better about their wealth. There was cynicism in his voice. "But I need to attend, and I need someone genuine by my side, someone who reminds me why certain charity work actually matters." Amber set down her fork. "You want me to go to a gala?" "Christian, I don't have anything to wear to something like that." "And those people are no better than you for being born with money," he interrupted. "And as for a dress, it's already taken care of." "What?" Christian gestured, and Iris appeared carrying a large box with the logo of a high-fashion boutique that Amber recognized from magazines. "I chose a few," Christian said, and there was something almost shy in his voice. "If you don't like any of them, we can find others, but I thought this one might suit you." Iris opened the box, and Amber forgot to breathe. The dress was deep navy blue, the color of midnight in silk that looked liquid, elegant but not revealing, sophisticated but not overdone. It was perfect. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Like you," Christian said so quietly she almost didn't hear. Their eyes met across the table, and Amber felt the air change. There was something in the way he looked at her, not with the raw lust she was used to from men, but with something deeper. Admiration, desire, yes, but tempered with respect. "Christian," she began, not knowing what she wanted to say. "Wear it tomorrow," he said, breaking the moment. "Marcus will pick you up at 7 o'clock." The gala was exactly as Christian had described, luxurious to excess, full of people who smiled with their lips but not with their eyes. Amber felt out of place among the designer dresses and jewelry that could feed entire families. But Christian didn't let her drift. His hand was constantly at the small of her back, a firm and reassuring touch. He introduced her to everyone, not as his employee, but simply as Amber, letting them draw their own conclusions, and the conclusions they drew were obvious. From the curious looks, from the whispers, everyone thought she was his girlfriend. Mr. Moretti, a smooth voice said. Amber turned to find a stunning woman in a red dress, all curves and confidence. It's so good to see you again. It's been a while. Vera, Christian replied, his voice polite but cold. This is Amber Dawson. Amber. Vera Lorenzo. Something in the way Vera looked at Amber. A flash of barely concealed jealousy told her everything she needed to know. This woman and Christian had history. Charmed, Vera said, not looking charmed at all. Christian, we need to talk about business. In private. There's nothing that can't be said in front of Amber. Christian responded, and his hand tightened slightly on her back. Vera blinked, surprised, and then her expression hardened. I see. Well, in that case, she leaned in, whispering something in Christian's ear that Amber couldn't hear, but she saw the instant change in him. His shoulders tensed, his jaw clenched. When Vera pulled away with a satisfied smile, Christian looked ready to kill. What? Amber began. We need to leave, he said abruptly.
Now.
In the car, Christian was tense as a coiled spring. Marcus drove in silence while Christian typed furiously on his phone, his brow furrowed in concentration. Christian, what happened? Amber finally asked. He paused, looking at her as if he'd forgotten she was there. Then he sighed deeply. One of my operations was compromised. Someone's passing information to the Lorenzo family. He gestured vaguely in the direction of the gala they were leaving behind. Vera was warning me, not out of kindness, but because she wants something in return. Is that dangerous? Yes. Christian didn't lie to her. Very dangerous. The kind of situation that could start a war. Amber felt fear tighten her stomach. Are you going to be okay? He looked at her for a long moment.
You're worried about me.
You saved my grandmother, gave me a home. Of course, I'm worried. It's not just that, Christian said quietly, turning to face her completely. Tell me the truth, Amber. Why do you really care? The car had stopped. They'd arrived at the mansion without Amber noticing. Marcus had discreetly exited, leaving them alone in the back seat. Because you're a good man trying to survive in a bad world, Amber heard herself say. And because when you look at me, I feel seen. Really seen for the first time in my life. Christian closed his eyes briefly, as if her words had physically struck him. When he opened them again, there was something wild in them, something dangerous and needy at the same time. Amber, if I kiss you right now, it'll be because you want it. Because you want me, not because you work for me, not because you feel obligated, only because you want it as much as I do. Her heart was beating so hard, she was certain he could hear it. And if I do want it, then nothing will be simple anymore, he warned. Because I'm not a man of half measures. If I have you, Amber, I'll protect you with everything I have. I'll put you at the center of my dangerous world, and I'll want more than you might be ready to give. Amber should pull back. Should remember all the reasons why this was a terrible idea. But all she could think about was how Christian had looked at her tonight, not as an employee, not as an obligation, but as someone precious. Kiss me, she whispered. He didn't hesitate. His mouth captured hers in a kiss that was everything. Desire, promise, claim. His hand came up to cup her face, holding her gently while his tongue traced the seam of her lips. Amber melted against him, her fingers finding the lapel of his suit, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, and Amber forgot to breathe, forgot they were in the back seat of a car, that she worked for this man, that he was dangerous. All that existed was Christian's mouth on hers, his hands on her face and her hair, pulling her closer as if she were air, and he was drowning. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathless. Amber, Christian whispered against her lips. You have no idea what you just started. Then show me, she challenged, surprising herself with her boldness. His eyes darkened, and then his phone rang, breaking the moment. Christian cursed in Italian, checking the screen. I have to take this. But Amber, he looked at her with intensity that left her breathless. We're not finished here. Not even close. He exited the car, already speaking rapid Italian, leaving Amber alone with swollen lips and a heart she no longer recognized. Because Amber realized something terrifying in that moment. She was falling in love with Christian Moretti. And in his world, love was the greatest vulnerability of all. Amber didn't sleep that night. She lay in her luxurious bed, fingers touching her lips where Christian had kissed her, listening to distant sounds from the house, heavy footsteps, low voices in Italian, cars arriving and departing. Something was happening, something big. At 3 o'clock in the morning, she gave up on sleep. She put on a robe and went downstairs to the kitchen, hoping warm milk would help. But when she got there, she found Christian sitting at the kitchen table, only the dim lights under the cabinets illuminating the space. He was still wearing the suit pants and white shirt, but the first few buttons were undone, the tie discarded somewhere, sleeves rolled up, revealing muscular forearms. There was a glass of whiskey in his hand, and he looked more tired than she'd ever seen him. Couldn't sleep either, she asked softly. He looked up, surprised, and then something softened in his face. Too much on my mind. Amber hesitated, then moved to sit across from him at the table. Do you want to talk about it? It's not safe, he responded automatically. Am I not in your world now? Amber challenged gently. You said you'd put me at the center of it, so let me in, Christian. Not just the pretty parts. He studied her for a long moment, then sighed deeply. Someone inside my organization is betraying me, passing information about my operations to the Lorenzos. And if I don't find out who soon, it's going to cost lives, possibly mine. Fear gripped Amber's chest. How are you going to find out? There's a method, Christian said, taking a sip of the whiskey. Give different false information to each person I suspect. See which information reaches the Lorenzos. It'll tell me who the traitor is. That's smart, Amber said, genuinely impressed. It's necessary, he paused. Amber, if something happens to me. No, she interrupted fiercely.
Don't talk like that. I have to.
His eyes were serious. If something happens, Marcus has instructions. You'll be taken care of. Your grandmother will have treatment for the rest of her life. There's money set aside, a house in your name, everything legal. You'll be safe. Tears burned Amber's eyes. I don't want your money, Christian. I want you alive. Something broke in that gaze. Christian stood, circled the table, pulled Amber to her feet, and wrapped her in his arms. She clung to him, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her cheek, the solid warmth of him. I won't let anything happen to me, he murmured into her hair. Not now, not when I finally found you again. They stood like that for long minutes, just holding each other in the silence of the kitchen. And Amber felt something shift, not just between them, but within her. She was no longer just Amber Dawson, the waitress, surviving day to day. She was someone Christian Moretti held as if she were precious, someone he was willing to fight for. Come, Christian said finally, taking her hand. I want to show you something. He led her down the hall to his office, a place she'd never entered. It was masculine and impressive, full of dark wood and leather books. But Christian guided her to a painting on the wall, pressing something that made a section of the bookshelf open, revealing a safe. 5 years, he said, opening it. I've kept this for 5 years. He took out something small, turned around, and Amber gasped. In the palm of his hand was a woman's watch, delicate, vintage, with small diamonds around the face. It was beautiful. When I woke up in that hospital after you left me, Christian began, his voice low. The first thing I did was search for who you were. It took 3 days to find you. Amber Dawson, waitress, no family except her grandmother, working 3 jobs. And I thought, this woman saved my life and didn't want anything in return. How do I thank her for that? He held the watch up to the light. This watch belonged to my mother. It's the only thing I have from her. I was going to give this to the woman I loved one day. His eyes met hers. I kept it for you, Amber, even not knowing if I'd see you again. Because that night when you told me everyone deserves a chance to live, you gave me something more than life. You gave me hope that good people still existed. Amber couldn't hold back the tears. Christian, you don't have to wear it now, he said quickly. I just wanted you to know you weren't just a good deed to me, Amber. You were the reminder that I could be more than I am. And now that you're here, I want to be more for you. Amber took the watch from his hand with trembling fingers. It was heavy, real, a physical promise of what he was offering. I have something for you, too, she said impulsively. She ran back to her room, returning moments later with a shoebox. Inside was his watch, the paid fipe she'd kept for 5 years. Christian took it, disbelief on his face. You really kept it. You said it was a promise. Amber repeated his words from years ago. I never break promises. They stood there, each holding the other's watch, and Amber felt as if they were exchanging something much more significant than objects. They were exchanging trust. Future possibility. Amber Dawson, Christian said quietly, taking a step closer. Will you let me court you properly? Dinners, outings, let you get to know me for real. Not the boss, just Christian. Yes, she whispered. But Christian, yes, you're already more than you think you are. You just need to let yourself see it. The kiss this time was softer, sweeter, but no less powerful. It was a promise, a beginning. But Christian, phone rang again, breaking the moment. He checked it, and his expression instantly hardened. They found something, he said. I have to go. Be careful, Amber pleaded. Always, he kissed her forehead. Go back to bed. And Amber, wear the watch when you're ready. I'll be waiting. And then he was gone. Leaving Amber with his mother's watch in her hands and his heart, she realized in her keeping. Morning brought chaos. Amber woke to shouting from downstairs. She dressed quickly and ran down, finding Christian in his office, surrounded by men. Marcus was there, and everyone looked tense. Wasn't careful enough, someone was saying. Now they know that we know. Then we force their hand, Christian replied, his voice cold as ice. If they want war, we'll give them war. Christian. Amber spoke from the doorway, and all the men turned to stare at her. But Christian just gestured for her to enter. It's safe, he told the others. Amber stays. There's a woman here, Marcus said, entering quickly. Says she needs to speak with Amber. It's urgent. About her grandmother. Amber's heart stopped. What? She ran to the living room where a nurse she recognized from the hospital was waiting, looking nervous under the gaze of Christian guards. M. Dawson, the nurse said quickly. Your grandmother had a complication this morning. It's not fatal, but the doctors want you there. She's asking for you. Panic flooded Amber. I need to go. Marcus will take you, Christian said immediately, appearing behind her. And he'll stay with you. I want security around her at all times. Understood. Sir, with the Lorenzo situation, I said at all times, Christian repeated, his tone leaving no room for argument. Then softer to Amber. Go take care of her. I'll handle this here and meet you there. Amber looked at him, seeing the concern in his eyes, not just for his situation, but for her. Promise you'll be safe. I promise. Now go. The hospital was a blur of white corridors and disinfectant smell. Amber ran to her grandmother's room, Marcus following behind like a silent shadow. Her grandmother was pale but awake and smiled weakly when Amber entered. My girl, Grandma. Amber took her hand, tears flowing freely. I'm here. It's okay. Who's this handsome man? Her grandmother asked, looking at Marcus with curious eyes. Oh, friend, Amber said. I'm safe, Grandma. Better than ever. They talked quietly while doctors came and went, explaining it was a temporary reaction to the medication. Nothing indicating the treatment wasn't working. In fact, the tumor had shrunk. There was real hope for remission. Amber cried with relief. It was almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon when Christian finally appeared. He looked exhausted. There was a superficial cut on his temple that someone had poorly bandaged, but he was alive. Christian. Amber stood wanting to run to him, but conscious they were in public with her grandmother watching everything. You must be the young man taking care of my granddaughter, her grandmother said with a weak but clear voice. Christian approached the bed with respect, his posture softening. Mrs. Dawson, it's an honor to finally meet you. Amber talks about you often. She saved your life. I heard, her grandmother said, her eyes studying Christian intently. 5 years ago. Yes, Mom. And now I'm trying to repay that by taking care of her. Taking care or loving. The question was direct. No beating around the bush. Amber gasped.
Grandma.
But Christian didn't look away from the older woman. Both, I hope. If she'll let me. A slow smile spread across her grandmother's tired face. Then you have my blessing, young man. Just don't hurt her. This girl has too big a heart. Don't let it be broken. Never, Christian promised, and there was iron in his voice. That I swear. Outside the room, while Amber's grandmother slept, she finally allowed herself to ask, "What happened?" "You're hurt." "I'm fine." "And we found the traitor." Christian touched the cut on his temple absently. It was someone I'd trusted for years, but he's taken care of now. Amber didn't ask what taken care of meant. She wasn't sure she wanted to know. And the Lorenzos backed down for now.
Christian sighed.
But Amber, it's going to get more dangerous before it gets better. If you want out, I understand. I can set you up somewhere else safe with your grandmother cared for. No, Amber interrupted. I'm staying. I promised I would, and I don't break promises. Remember? Christian pulled her into a tight embrace right there in the hospital corridor, not caring who saw. How did I get so lucky that you walked into that diner that night? It wasn't luck, Amber said against his chest. It was destiny, and she truly believed that the next 2 weeks were the most tense of Amber's life. Christian was constantly surrounded by security. Meetings happened at all hours, and she saw the tension in every line of his body. But he still made time for her. Candlelit dinners when he could. Stolen conversations in the garden. Quiet moments where he just held her as if she were the only thing keeping him anchored. And Amber fell more in love each day. She started wearing his mother's watch. She didn't say anything, just appeared at breakfast one morning with it on her wrist. The way Christian's eyes lit up, how he took her hand and kissed her wrist just above the watch. Amber knew she'd made the right choice. "You're killing me, Amber Dawson," he murmured. In all the best ways, but the peace didn't last. It was a Thursday when everything fell apart. Amber was supervising lunch when Marcus rushed in, his face pale. "Where's Mr. Moretti?" "In the office." "Why?" Marcus was already gone. Amber followed him, her heart pounding. At the office door, she heard raised voices. "They have her grandmother." Amber's world stopped. She entered without knocking, seeing Christian standing behind his desk, his phone in his hand, his expression murderous. "What happened?" Her voice was surprisingly calm. Christian looked at her, and she saw real fear in his eyes for the first time. "The Lorenzos. They raided the hospital and took your grandmother." "It's a message to me." Amber felt her knees buckle. Marcus caught her before she fell. "They won't hurt her," Christian said quickly, rounding the desk. "She's just leverage. They want to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" Amber demanded me. Simple.
Direct.
I turn myself in. "Your grandmother is released."
No.
The word came out as a scream.
Christian, no.
"You can't. It's the only way."
No.
Amber grabbed his arms, forcing him to look at her. "You promised you'd be safe. You promised. And you think I can live knowing your grandmother died because of me?" Christian shot back. "You think I can look at you every day knowing I failed to protect the person you love most?" Tears ran down Amber's face. "She's not the person I love most," she confessed. "You are." Time stopped. "Amber," Christian whispered, his hands coming up to cup her face. "I love you," she said clearly, not caring about Marcus and the other men in the room. "I love you, Christian Moretti. And if you turn yourself into them, they'll kill you, and I won't survive that. Please, please find another way." Christian pulled her against him, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. "I love you, too," he said into her hair. "That's why I'm doing this for you, sir." Marcus intervened hesitantly. "There's another option." Everyone turned to him. "The Lorenzos have her grandmother at the old warehouse at the docks. It's a trap, obviously, but if we go in with full force, we could start an all-out war in the streets," Christian finished. "There'll be blood, many casualties. But they're not expecting it," Marcus pressed. "They expect negotiation. Expect you alone. If we go in with everything, Christian was silent for a long moment, his mind clearly working through every angle. Then he looked at Amber. If we do this, it's permanent. The Lorenzos won't forget. It'll be open war for months, maybe years. But you'll be alive, Amber said fiercely. And so will my grandmother, so let's do it. Amber would never forget the next 6 hours. Christian locked her in a secure room in the mansion with guards outside, saying he couldn't concentrate if he was worried about her. She begged to go along, but he was inflexible. You stay safe. Non-negotiable. And then he was gone, surrounded by at least 20 armed men, leaving Amber to wait and pray. She paced, twisted the watch on her wrist until her fingers were numb, cried until she had no more tears. Iris brought tea she didn't touch. The hours dragged like days. It was almost midnight when she heard it. The distant sound of cars arriving, voices, quick footsteps. Amber ran to the door, pounding on it. Let me out, please. The guards finally opened, and she ran downstairs. She saw Marcus first with blood on his shirt but alive. She saw other men, some injured, being helped inside. And then she saw Christian. He was in the center of the entrance hall helping to carry a stretcher. And on the stretcher was her grandmother, pale, frightened, but alive. Grandma? Amber ran, tears flowing again. You're okay? I am, dear. Her grandmother held her hand. Thanks to your young man. He came like an army. Amber looked at Christian, who was covered in blood. She couldn't tell how much was his, but smiling. Really smiling. I said I'd protect you, he said. That included who you love. Amber didn't care about the blood, about the other men watching, about anything. She threw herself into his arms and kissed him right there, pouring all her relief, love, and gratitude into that kiss. When they broke apart, Christian was laughing. I guess that means you forgive me for locking you up this time, she said. But she was smiling through the tears. Sir, Marcus said gently, the Lorenzos, they won't be coming back. Their father agreed to peace terms. Said he respected the play. Christian nodded, but his focus was all on Amber. It's over. At least for now. We're safe. 2 weeks later, Amber's grandmother was back home. Their home, Amber had started thinking of it that way. Treatment continued, but doctors were optimistic. Remission was more than a hope now. It was a real probability. And Amber was in love. She and Christian didn't rush. He courted her properly. Dinners, walks in the gardens, long conversations under the stars. He shared his world with her gradually, letting her see both the man he was and the business he ran. It was scary sometimes, but it was also real. And Amber preferred dangerous truth to safe lies. One night, 2 months after the rescue, Christian took her to dinner on a rooftop restaurant he'd rented entirely for them. Manhattan glittered like scattered jewels around them, but all Amber could see was the man before her. Amber, he began when they'd finished eating. I have something for you. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and Amber's heart raced. But when he opened it, it wasn't an engagement ring. It was a necklace. Simple, elegant, a gold chain with a pendant that was clearly antique Italian. This belonged to my grandmother, Christian explained. It's been passed down through generations of the Moretti family. My mother gave it to me before she died, telling me to give it to the woman I wanted by my side forever. Christian, I'm not asking you to marry me. Not yet. His eyes met hers, intense and honest. But I'm asking something more important. I'm asking you to trust me with your future. To build something together, a life, a family if you want, an empire that honors both of us, not as employee and boss, but as equal partners. Tears blurred Amber's vision. You want me to stay permanently? I want you, Amber Dawson. In every way. You'll let me have you forever if you'll let me. Amber thought about the waitress she'd been just months ago, working 3 jobs, struggling to survive, invisible to the world. And she looked at the woman she'd become, loved by a powerful man who truly saw her, caring for her grandmother, finding strength she didn't know she possessed. Yes, she said, her voice firm and clear. I choose you, Christian. I choose us forever. He placed the necklace around her neck with hands that trembled slightly, then pulled her into a kiss that promised everything. And when they finally broke apart, Amber looked out at the lights of New York and realized she was finally home. Not in a place, in a person in Christian. 3 years later, Amber stood on the mansion's terrace, watching the sun set over Long Island Sound. Her watch, Christian's mother's watch, gleamed on her wrist, and his grandmother's necklace warmed against her heart. But it was the ring on her left ring finger that made her smile most. Christian had proposed exactly 1 year after that night at the restaurant, not with an elaborate proposal, but during a quiet morning while they were having coffee, simply saying, "Marry me, Amber. Make me the luckiest man alive." She'd said yes before he finished the sentence. The wedding was small, just close family and friends. Her grandmother had cried through the entire ceremony, healthy and strong after 2 years in complete remission. And when Christian had kissed Amber as his wife, she knew every scary moment, every challenge, every tear had been worth it. "What are you thinking about?" Christian's deep voice came from behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist, pulling her against his chest. "About how my life changed?" Amber replied, covering his hands with hers. "About how I almost didn't accept your watch that night 8 years ago. But you did, and you saved my life." "No," Amber corrected, turning in his arms to face him. "You saved mine. You gave me a family, a future. Love I never thought I'd have. We saved each other," Christian said, kissing her forehead. "That's how it works when two people are meant to be together." Below, through the French windows, Amber could see her grandmother talking with Iris in the kitchen, both laughing. The house was full of life, of love, of warmth. "You know," Amber said thoughtfully, "sometimes I think about Olivia Taylor. I wonder if she ever realized she gave me the greatest gift by hitting me that night. If it weren't for her, you and I wouldn't have reunited." Christian laughed low. "Lucky for her you think that way. Otherwise, I might have been less merciful in our business interaction since then." Amber lightly tapped his chest. "You promised to play fair, and I do, but that doesn't mean I can't ensure certain people learn consequences for their actions." They stood there as the sun sank completely, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. And Amber thought about journeys. How she started invisible and ended seen. How she started alone and ended loved. How she started surviving and ended living. "I love you, Christian Moretti," she whispered. "I love you, Amber Moretti," he replied. And the pride in his voice when he said her new surname made her heart overflow. This was her life now. Not perfect, not without challenges, but truly completely theirs. And it was worth every moment. And so Amber and Christian's story comes to an end. A waitress and a mafia boss united by destiny and by love that proved stronger than any obstacle. Thank you all for following this story. If you enjoyed it, please write in the comments where you're watching from and share your thoughts about the story. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video as your support is important for me to continue creating content. Until next time.